Hey, what's up? Four Eyes here. Ever since I was a fetus, I've always wanted to sell my soul, and what a better way to do that than by joining the Apple ecosystem. But I don't own any Apple hardware, so I'm going to go into apple.com and invest in a MacBook, Apple Watch, iPhone 11, an iPad Air, and jeez! The majority of Linux distros, there are many desktop environments you can choose from, and they all sort of have their own ecosystems. Some are definitely better than others. For example, GNOME has tons of apps, while XFCE over there has what? 6 apps in its ecosystem? There are 3 major Linux ecosystems out there, so I'm going to go over those 3 in reverse alphabetical order and rate them out of 5 pairs. Let's start with the KDE ecosystem. The desktop environment that KDE's ecosystem uses is Plasma. Now, Plasma is pretty good as a desktop, but as an ecosystem, KDE has a very complete ecosystem in the Linux world, but I feel like apps in the KDE ecosystem have very inconsistent design and quality. For example, Kdenlive and Krita are some of my favorite Linux applications of all time, and I could use Kate as a full IDE replacement, but all the other KDE applications are only meh. Did you know KDE made an Office suite? The biggest issue is the inconsistent designs between Plasma apps. Just open up Plasma system settings, head over to your network settings, and in each category inside of the network settings you will find a different design. The Proxy tab just has a bunch of checkboxes. The connection preferences has stuff inside of other boxes, and the SSL preferences has a tab layout thing going on, which is interesting because there's only one tab. Another example is some KDE applications have a global menu, such as system settings, but if you open something up like Kdenlive, Krita, or Kurigra, you get a file bar menu instead. I will admit a lot of people make this a bigger deal than it really is. Just look at Windows 10. But with the Plasma ecosystem, you do have to screw around a little bit more with some of the apps a little bit in order to figure out how to use them. Another thing with the Plasma ecosystem, I don't think any sane person has actually used only KDE's ecosystem. Not even KDE's own distro, KDE Neon, uses all KDE apps. For example, installs Firefox by default instead of Fulkin, which is KDE's own web browser. And yeah, I will admit though, everything else on Neon is a KDE app, so point still stands. Now, I probably wouldn't be able to use Plasma without any GDK apps. But if I didn't need Kdenlive or OBS, I could definitely live on GNOME without any Qt apps. One thing I do love about the KDE ecosystem is KDE Connect. Sure, you can do this now with GS Connect on GNOME, but KDE wrote most of it, and KDE Connect has the best integration with this. KDE Connect allows you to connect your computer to your phone. That way you can do things like use your phone as a remote control for like music and stuff, you can run terminal commands for your phone, you can get your phone's notifications on your computer and vice versa. It's awesome. KDE Connect is definitely a great feature of the KDE ecosystem. So, what should we give it for the rating? I don't hate Plasma's ecosystem, but I wouldn't particularly use it over any other Linux ecosystem. So I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 pairs. GNOME. I actually really like this ecosystem. The ecosystem is one of several reasons to use GNOME. In my opinion, Fedora is kind of the flagship distro for GNOME because it always has the latest version of GNOME with barely any modifications. As an upside, it's also not OpenSUSE. Now, GNOME's desktop environment is called GNOME Shell. It's okay. Personally, it's my favorite desktop environment, but that's only because I like its workflow, and many people don't like it for one of many reasons. GNOME has a ton of applications, from GNOME Music to GNOME Web to Geary. Pretty much every stock app you would need for a distro, GNOME has you covered. Another thing is that a lot of third-party GDK applications respect GNOME's design principles, which means once you get used to GNOME's design, it's going to help you figure out how to use a lot of third-party apps too. Now, if you give me pretty much any modern GNOME app, I could figure out how to use it in like 1 minute. But if you gave me a KDE application, it could take me around 3 to 5 minutes to figure out how to use it, depending on what app it is. There are some oddball GNOME applications that don't follow their modern design, but most of these are older applications from the GNOME 2 days that either haven't been updated for GNOME 3, or their design just doesn't work well with GNOME 3's design. However, I'd say pretty much all of the GNOME applications that have been updated in the last years, or at least redesigned, have obeyed GNOME's design principles. Because of that, it's really easy to pick up new GNOME apps. GNOME apps tend to be stock apps with everything casual users would need. A lot of GNOME apps are missing features that other alternatives would have. However, GNOME apps are still pretty good, and I actually wish Lollipop Music Player and GNOME boxes were on Windows. Another cool thing about the GNOME ecosystem is if you're like most Linux users, then you probably don't like GNOME for one of the many reasons that people don't like GNOME. Well, the Budgie desktop actually uses pretty much everything from the GNOME ecosystem. As a matter of fact, many people go as far to say that GNOME is Budgie done right. Also, if you get theming right, the GNOME ecosystem works great on XFCE, Mate, Cinnamon, and even Plasma and LXQT, while KDE applications really only work good on Plasma and Qt desktops like LXQT. GNOME also pushes a lot of new technologies in the Linux world. Flatpaks were originally developed by the GNOME team, and now they are used by Plasma, Elementary, not Ubuntu, and quite a few other projects. Another thing is that GNOME is the biggest desktop that is pushing Wayland. Ew! Alright, this video is becoming GNOME propaganda, so I'm just going to give this ecosystem 5 pairs out of 5 and move on. So, you thought this had polish? Well, you've clearly never used Elementary. Elementary is an Ubuntu-based distro of the Pantheon desktop, and it has one of the biggest ecosystems, and everything like GNOME has a similar design. Elementary OS doesn't come with that many stock apps. It comes with an app center, a calculator, a calendar, camera, code editor, GNOME web, files, mail, music, and photos, as well as screenshot, settings, terminal, and video. Now, all of these apps, except for Epiphany or GNOME Web, is actually designed by the Elementary team. And so, because of that, similar to GNOME, if you get used to one Elementary app, you've pretty much gotten used to them all. Another thing is the Elementary team has a ton of dedicated developers. If you open the Software Center, or I guess the App Center, and click on any category pretty much, it shows tons of curated apps made by the Elementary team. But if you scroll to non-curated apps, these ones are not made by the Elementary team, and if you try to install something, you get a scary warning telling you that what you are installing is not made by the Elementary team, and you should stay in their walled garden. Elementary OS also comes with a pay-what-you-want model. On the website, you can choose to either pay $30, $20, or $10, or you could do what everyone else does and click on Custom and then type $0. The Elementary App Center also has some very expensive default apps. Even though it's pay what you want, for some reason, developers think they could charge really high for default apps. An example of this, the co-founder of Elementary OS, Cassidy James, made an app called Principles. What's this app do? Display the 10 principles of, I think, Dieter Ram's 10 Principles of Good Design. So, it's just an app that shows text. How much is this app by default? $2. However, if you hit the down arrow, you can pay $1, $5, $10, or even a custom amount, aka 0. I would like to know who paid $10 for this app. Anyways, I got a gig making one of those get-rich-quick scheme ads before a YouTube video, so I need to do that gig really quickly. Hey guys, don't click off this video because I'm going to show you how to make a couple of dollars so that you can buy a new 1978 Ford Pinto. All you have to do is make an Elementary OS app. It could be literally any useless thing that nobody needs. For example, you can make a Magic 8-Ball, or a program that copies open source licenses off the internet. Any idea works. And don't forget to set the default price to $5. Elementary's App Center has a great variety of greatly designed apps, and the issue is a lot of them are very niche. There are a lot of apps that no one would ever use because there's not really a use for them. A lot of things that a lot of Elementary apps do are something that you probably won't need very often. Like, who needs an app just for a Magic 8 Ball? But if you need something pretty niche done, there's probably an elementary app for that.
There's an app for that.
Now, the only other major criticism I have towards the elementary ecosystem is exclusivity. 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 You could use the Plasma ecosystem on pretty much any distro you want. Same with the GNOME ecosystem, as long as it's running GNOME or Plasma. But the elementary ecosystem is limited to elementary OS. Sure, most of the stock apps for elementary OS are available in other distros like Arch and Fedora, and same with the Pantheon desktop. But those stock apps won't work properly if you are using a theme that isn't the elementary theme. And if you want to use any of the elementary apps from other developers other than the elementary team, well, good luck. Some of them are in FlatHub, but most of them you have to compile from source yourself. Anyways, I'm gonna give the elementary OS ecosystem 4 out of 5 pairs. Anyways, those were the 3 ecosystems. There are some smaller ones like the Deepin ecosystem, but really those are the ones worth talking about. Although, one thing I forgot to mention is Linux phones. When the Librem 5 and PinePhone come out, we are going to have more flexibility in the Linux ecosystem. Bosch and Pure OS will bring the GNOME ecosystem to phones and make it more like the Apple ecosystem. And Plasma Mobile and KDE Neon will definitely also contribute to the Plasma ecosystem. For the time being, the elementary ecosystem is not on phones yet, but I'd love to see a way to get elementary apps on phones, and a way to see them integrated on mobile so that we could have that ecosystem. Anyways, I mistakenly ordered all of those Apple products from the intro in the video, and I maxed out my mom's credit card. I really hope my parents don't notice. Anyways, thanks for watching, and please consider becoming a patron on Patreon like Michelle Vantino, so that I can pay off my mom's credit card.